Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about synthesizing cognitive and intuitive intelligence. So, my story around this is that from the ages of probably 13 to 25, I had dismal intuitive development. And the way that you can know that yourself is how well can you feel your emotions. And if you don't have good access to your emotions, you might not even be aware of it. It's kind of like a fish doesn't even realize they're swimming in water. A person who is constantly repressing their emotions doesn't even realize it. And so, one way you can notice it is, are you feeling tired a lot? Because it takes a lot of energy to actually repress your emotions. Do you have a difficult time making decisions? Because our decisions are emotionally rooted. We have all this logic and stuff, but all that logic is just a way to organize the information. And we organize the information until we feel a certain way about a course of action, then we take it. Even the most logical people in the world, they'll still at the end of a discussion be like, that feels good to me, as if they're perfectly logical, and then it all comes down to a feeling anyway. It's not to say logic isn't important, that's the whole point of video. Another way to know if you've been suppressing your emotions a lot is, do you feel judgmental? Because if you feel judgmental, every judgment you have is blocking some kind of feeling, or you wouldn't be judging. And I'm not talking about discernment here, I'm talking about judgment, thinking you're better than somebody or whatever. So there are many indicators that you aren't feeling your emotions properly. You're not feeling them fully. And so that's kind of how I knew that the way that I knew I was suppressing my emotions a lot is I struggled immensely with decision making, immensely. And then all kinds of other things clicked into place. I struggle with decision making and I'm constantly tired. This was a couple of years ago, and mentally tired all the fucking time. And I chalked it up to all kinds of reasons. And I thought it was maybe an IQ problem, decision making thing, or a whole bunch of separate issues. And then I found out that it's basically just this emotional thing, right? So, anyway, because the intuitive aspect of my cognition was all fucked up, and I still needed to navigate life, I had to develop my more intellectual aspects of my cognition. And that's the only route I felt like I had to find a purpose in my life. It was like, okay, I have to solve my problem with my brain or something like that. And that never fucking worked. Because the thing is that every logical system is either fully, I don't remember all this shit, but talk about Gödel's incompleteness theorem. And basically, what you can deduce from that theorem is before his incompleteness theorem, the dominant school of mathematics was trying to make everything perfectly logically derived from basic mathematical postulates, and that it would all be internally consistent and be complete and whatever, and there wouldn't be any contradictions in it. Turns out that that is literally impossible. And that same school also wanted to get rid of intuitive thinking. They wanted anything that came from human imagination or intuition. They were like, no, that doesn't count. They wanted a purely algorithmic approach to deriving mathematical proofs. Basically, Kurt Gödel found out that that's not possible, and he was actually a tremendous fan of using intuition. He would actually cultivate direct feeling and perception of mathematical concepts. He developed this kind of meditation, I would call it a meditation, where you lay down in a dark room with his eye closed and get a direct sensation of mathematical ideas. And that was the basis for much of his cognition. So I can't remember why I was talking about that. Well, I know the whole point of what I'm talking about, though, is that logic is not complete. You can't just logic your way into a solution or a way of living your life. At the end of the day, the context in which the logic works is your emotions. So I was fucked because I did not have an emotional awareness at all whatsoever. So I would journal gigantic binders just full of thoughts and logical systems, and I would try to break things down analytically and just deduce what should I do, and nothing ever worked for that as far as that was concerned. They were logically coherent, yes, but so when I discovered that, I basically went all in, and I was like, oh shit, well, this makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to start feeling my emotions. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to have it all figured out, right? That is not what fucking happened, man. Holy shit, it's been 2 years since then. And what I've found out is that when you start uncorticing your emotions and your cognition, your intellect is highly developed, then things can get really fucking sideways really fucking fast. Because what I noticed is I had hyper developed mental models of things, but the postulates, which are intuitively derived, as those started to become more and more clear and more subtle and more refined, then those logical systems, they didn't just go away. They all had to mutate, break apart, and reorganize and find a new level of connectivity to account for the new chaos that came in. And so for many years, and this is still something that's happening today, is I lost the ability to use my mind. And I was just wandering out based on a poorly developed sense of intuition. Because my intuition, my intuitive, and I'm saying intuition, I'm saying literally feeling based thinking, was so fucked that it's like I lost the ability to use a flashlight, but I hadn't developed the ability to use a torch yet. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, is like, and I'm slowly being able to bring my logical brain back into things. And my emotional system is starting to get to a point where it flows sufficiently well that I can get some things done again. So I still do have a fear that whenever I start thinking with my brain, when I start actually noodling around with an idea or a topic, I still do get into this kind of trauma territory. Oh shit, I'm just gonna develop an entire cathedral of conclusions and deductions and whatever, and just get lost in that game forever with no ground, no or bounding even, because I can just take any idea I have and then perform mental operations on it into infinity. And so that was extremely miserable. And once I discovered I didn't have to do that, then it became incredibly unsavory to start thinking again. But I'm slowly starting to feel safe using my brain again, and I feel like my brain's starting to get guardrails, and we're not going to go into an infinite recursive spiral of mental operations and calculations. We're not going to fucking do that. We have our intuitive thing to be a stopgap, to bound the problem space, to set the assumptions and the postulates on which we're going to operate. And at the end of the day, we'll stop calculating once a certain emotional or intuitive criteria is met. So I realized this wasn't a very instructive video, and I guess I'm not in no position to really instruct you on this. I'm just describing how it's been playing out for me. And I think that's enough for today. All right. Thanks for watching.